Now I'd love to turn it over to our presenters. So we have three speakers today. Cindy Stevens from Wentworth Institute of Technology, Candace Reynolds from Boise State University, and Tracy Penny Light from St. George's University, and of course from Able.
Thank you, Amy. Do you all want me to steer or be the one? I don't know what I'm.
Yes, please.
I've been in an assessment meeting all morning, a 2-hour assessment meeting. It just sort of like,
You're gonna be our pilot, Candace.
Yeah.
there, that's what I'm gonna do. That's
And
the work.
I know that you'll have a safe takeoff and landing.
Okay, well, I'm going to share and see if that works. There we go. So we'll start off with Tracy, who's going to talk about IJEP.
Okay, thanks so much, Candace. Welcome everyone. I am the past co-executive editor of IJEP, and currently the co-executive editors are Eddie Watson and Jessica Chittum, but neither of them were able to be here today, so I offered to pitch it for them. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour. Eddie sent me a script, and so I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit about the International Journal of ePortfolio, so you get a sense of what the journal does and also how you might think about contributing in the future. So Candace, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So if you go to, and you can kind of see it a little bit at the bottom, but I'm going to put it into the chat for you as well.
Sorry.
If you go to HTTPS, oh, and go back one if you don't mind, Candace, thank you. To the IJEP.com, you're going to find this landing page. And what I'm going to do is just take you on a little bit of a tour. And actually, Candace, maybe you can stop sharing, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And it might just be a little bit easier to actually show everyone where I want them to be looking. So hold, please. Sorry, I was prepared to go after Candace. So
I'm sorry.
I am just like, not a problem. I'm going to just, as we were just saying, Pamela, we were talking earlier about our need to just roll with things these days. And so that's what we're going to do. So anyway, let me get back to my Zoom. I have my right window open now, and I should be able to share my screen. You'd think that we would be so adept at this these days, but sometimes more than others. Okay, so this is the landing page. And as I said, I gave you the link to this page in the chat. And so Eddie wanted me to just give you a little bit of a tour of the International Journal of ePortfolio that he started quite a number of years ago with his colleague, Peter Doolittle. IJEP is now part of AAC&U. So AAC&U helps to manage the publication. So the easiest thing to do is kind of go to the current issue. And as you can see, every issue has a number of articles that are available. And all of the publications are open access. So that means anyone can access them at any time. And I love that about IJEP because it means that, you can find what you're looking for pretty easily. Lots of different types of articles. Typically, we have instructional articles, sometimes assessment articles. So many of the articles in IJEP tend to be more traditionally research focused. So research with a large R, in that people have collected data and analyzed it and then shared that out. However, sometimes there are articles that don't really fit into those categories. And so you'll see that in the current issue, there's a distinctive article. And that's a great piece by Peter McClellan, where he's really talking about some of the theoretical ideas behind ePortfolio and, as you can see there, anti-racist ePortfolio pedagogy. So, there's a lot of possibilities for contributors to the journal, and I'm going to show you the call for papers and the guidelines for authors in just a moment, but wanted you to know that you can easily access any of the current articles. You can also go to past issues, and you can see there's a long list of them dating back to 2011. section. And basically, if you click on the link again, it will show you the articles that have been published. And so you can pretty easily see what's available in the publication. So the point is that iJeep is a scholarly publishing opportunity. It is a double-blind peer-reviewed journal. That means that the articles, when they're received by the co-executive editors, they do a first read of the articles and make a determination about whether or not they're suitable for the journal. And if they are, sometimes they give the author some feedback around, yes, this is a fit for us, but we need some editing prior to it going out for further peer review. And if it's in good shape already, then it gets sent along to peer reviewers who do that official peer review and provide feedback to the authors. We try to provide quite detailed feedback to authors so that they have a real sense of what to work on and what specifically might be a gap in their particular publication. And one thing that I noticed often in articles that we received for publication is that while the articles had a research literature base to them, they hadn't either delved deep enough into the ePortfolio research or into research that was specific to the area that they were targeting. And so I'm making this up. This isn't an example specifically, but for instance, someone might submit a publication or an article for publication on ePortfolios and faculty development and may have surveyed the ePortfolio literature extensively, but not the faculty development literature. So the editors are always looking for that balance and how to find and point to material that will be really useful to the community broadly. And that's difficult for us to do sometimes, I think, as researchers, because we're trained in our disciplinary fields and we know those fields really well. I think of ePortfolio as a very interdisciplinary field, and so really encourage you to think about, we were speaking earlier about a great session that happened just a few minutes ago on nursing. The nurses are going to know the nursing literature really well. And so we would want to see some of that, but we would also want to see that breadth and depth of understanding about what other disciplines perhaps have used ePortfolios, how nursing is maybe unique and maybe where it fits into the broader scope of things with respect to ePortfolio. So with that in mind, I wanted to also share with you a great place for finding more research on ePortfolio specifically. And this is where you can search and look for, because sometimes it's hard to find, like iJeep is for sure a go-to and something that you'd want to consider exploring if you wanted to write on ePortfolio. And so this is a good publication or a good database for finding research on ePortfolio. And so you can go to the Pearl database, and I'm going to put the link in the chat. And if you go to the Pearl database, then you can actually search the database for articles that you might be looking at. So for instance, you can see that there are different types of themes, and you can search by theme, or you can just search by keyword. So, we were just speaking about nursing. So you could kind of search the database to see whether or not there are any articles on nursing that show up. And you can see that there are 30 articles that were filtered, and you can just go in and you can filter them further if you want and find the ones that are empirical or the ones that are descriptive, or you can just go to the list of articles and they provide you all of the information about not just the title, but what the location number is and things like that. So it's a really helpful database to search for ePortfolio related articles. And we've seen both things. So, here's my article on ePortfolios and faculty development, but no literature on faculty development with it. And we've seen the opposite as well. Here's my great take on ePortfolio assessment, and there's not really any of the literature on ePortfolio assessment tied to it. So sometimes there's like a general, I read Einen and Gambino, or I read Candace Reynolds on integrative learning. And we would say, and what else? What else should we be connecting this to? So it's important to kind of think through those things. And I will say that Eddie and Jessica are fantastic. And if you aren't sure whether you've got your bases covered, I'm sure they would be happy to hear from you and give you some feedback on your idea. So that's where you can find the current and past issues. There's a current call for papers out, and the deadline for submission is December 1st. And you can see here that they outline the mission of the journal so that you can get a sense of the more detailed sense of the types of articles that we look for in IJEEP, the types of manuscripts. And so I mentioned this earlier, instructional articles. So these are articles that really focus on how you've used ePortfolio in your teaching and learning context, assessment articles that focus on ePortfolio for assessment purposes, technology, policy, and management. So perhaps you have adopted a new technology system or approach on your campus that is implicated in ePortfolios. Maybe you're going to detail how that rolled out and what evidence of success you're seeing. And then, as I mentioned, those distinctive articles that don't necessarily fit into any of the other categories that you can use to do that. And so the submission guidelines for authors can also be found by just clicking, and it gives you all of the details about the expectation of the journal. So we also really appreciate when authors have submitted in formal APA format. That's the format that the journal uses. And so you can see that they've linked to some resources there so that the editors don't have to fuss with that. And often if it's way outside of traditional APA format, then it might get sent back to you and you'd be asked to actually put it in the proper format. And then finally, I think I wanted to share with you that there is an opportunity for you to become a reviewer. So if you're interested, maybe not ready yet to publish your work, or maybe you've already published, but you'd like to contribute as a reviewer, you can click on this page and go to the list of the review board members. And you can see that it's a lot of fairly distinguished experts in the field, people who've been doing ePortfolio for a long time, and some people who've been doing it for less time, but are doing really good work. It's a great opportunity for you to get some insight into how the journal works and the kinds of papers that it receives. And I love this because love being a reviewer, because I always get to learn so much about who is doing what work and what's happening on different campuses. And I saw Amy put a link to this page in the chat, and then I gave you the specific link to become a reviewer as well. And so we're really welcome you to kind of be in touch and let us know if you'd be interested. I know all journals are always happy to have more reviewers, and Eddie would be happy to speak to any of you about your interests. So I'm going to go ahead and put his email in the chat as well, and you can feel free to reach out to him. You're welcome to reach out to me if you have questions, but I'm also happy to answer a few questions here if you have them.
Questions, folks, or do you want to hear about AEPR first and then we'll entertain questions together? Does that work?
That works, Candace, I think.
Okay. Let me share the screen again. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks so much. And again, if you all have, if questions kind of occur to you as Candace and Cindy are speaking, feel free to put them in the chat as well.
Great. So my name is Candace Reynolds, and I have I really have the privilege of working with the editorial team for the ABLE ePortfolio review. And I'll have my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Stevens, coming to you from Quincy, Mass., just outside of Boston, in the middle of a heat wave. I'm from Wentworth, like was introduced earlier, and I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about AEPR. We have such a great team, as Candace just mentioned. You're going to find out lots of things about AEPR, and hopefully you'll have lots of questions as well. I'm very proud of our work, and this team. We've really bonded together well. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit.
Great. So, yeah, let's talk about our team. And there'll be an invitation at the end that if you might want to join our team, we certainly are open to having new people join us. But we have, and I think we're all volunteers for the most part. We have an editor-in-chief who is Samantha Blevins from Radford University. And then we have executive editors who are our editors-in-chief for many, many years, Cindy Stevens, who's here, and Russell Stolens. And then each issue has a managing editor, and they kind of rotate. So Barbara Ramirez from Clemson and I don't know how to pronounce Debbie's last name, from the Institute on American Indian Arts is our trade back and forth being managing editors. We have a design and production person, and this person is fairly new. We found this person on LinkedIn, and she's done a fantastic job. One thing I think we're all really proud of is this is a magazine kind of style journal, and has always been beautiful. And Susan is allowing us to kind of keep it beautiful as well as informative. Then we are very, very fortunate to have an APA style editor, Kara Hood. I kind of want to, every time I write something, I want to hire her to be my APA editor because she catches everything. So I'm sure she doesn't want to do that, but she's been very useful for us. And then I am the social media editor because I like being on all those social media outlets. So I publicize our work, and I'm also the liaison to the board.
Mm-hmm.
My thing's very sensitive.
Oh, go back one. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, no. Okay. There, okay. And I do just want to say that we are a magazine type of publication. We do not have the same kind of goals as IJEP. Our goal is really to be focused on practitioners, and as such to have it be easy to read and easy to kind of, download and share with others if you want to, the articles. So here's our vision, and Cindy's going to tell us about that.
Right. So I'd like to back up just a little bit and talk about a little bit of history and how we led to this vision. I don't know if anybody here remembers The Learner, which was the newsletter for ABLE for years and years and years and years, which I was leading the path for that, which was such a fun project every time we would put out a new newsletter. And some of the similarities rolled over from newsletter style into, magazine journal style into AEPR. So it was very fun. And we did stop The Learner for a while. And then all of a sudden, when things started gearing back up again, we started talking about we need a new publication. We need something that, like Candace mentioned, that's a little bit more for practitioners. And we went full steam ahead. We pulled together a team. All the members originally were from ABLE's membership. So that was very nice. And we had several members that are not here now, but they worked with us for years and years. And then, some people just need to rotate out. They have other things happening. They're moving. So it all works out okay. And we've just been very fortunate to find team members to just fit the right place every time, every year. We're so fortunate. And, Susan is just down the street from me in another state, the next state over. So that works out good. Maybe I'll visit her at some point. But we do consider ourselves a peer-reviewed journal because not double-blind or anything like that, but peer-reviewed because we do go through so much of a peer review process. I mean, there are so many eyes on this publication. On each author's article from the very beginning. Looking at draft work, we have review editors that work with the author, and we'll talk a little bit more about the publication cycle flow in an upcoming slide. But we do consider ourselves peer reviewed, and practitioners. We also want students to publish. We encourage publications that are long articles, short articles, medium-sized articles, also book reviews or anything that would be small and simple, even one-page items, because it is the magazine-like journal. And we offer such a collaborative environment. We work together. We keep an eye on the authors. And now we'll move on to the approach. So, that's okay. You can move on to the approach, Candace. We'll stay right here. So that's perfect.
I got it.
Okay, so we're back to the video. Okay, so we do, that's all right, I understand. We do base our issues, we were publishing 3 times a year, and it's so funny, I had conversations with Tracy at every conference. She's like, I don't know how you guys are doing this 3 times a year. We were like a well-oiled machine, to be honest with you, publishing 3 times a year, but then we figured out that was a bit much. At first I was like, no, Tracy, we want to keep doing 3 times a year. Then I said, okay, I have to agree with her. She was right all along. So now we've moved down to twice a year, which is working out perfectly. And at first, when we went to the twice a year, we fell apart a little bit because we were so used to publishing 3 times a year and just staying on top of things, but it worked out okay. So once a year, we follow the conference theme now, and once a year, we pick our own theme that we feel is very relevant to what's happening during the time. So they're beautiful articles, they're beautiful magazine journal, and I'm hoping everybody has had a chance to take a look at it. But we can move on to the publication cycle workflow now, Candace. So our approach is you submit your call for proposal, which is actually active now. The deadline is August 1st, although sometimes we do extend the deadline. We're getting a little bit better about making sure we stick to some standard dates, but we do offer flexibility, and we have had a lot of flexibility during the pandemic because everybody, knows what was going on during this whole pandemic. So we pair you with an editor, and these are volunteer editors that are not part of the team that Candace showed you on the slide prior. These are outside editors that also, have their name published in the journal, which is great. We have a styles editor that looks specifically at styles, layout, tables, images, that type of thing. We also have an APA editor who I thought we were going to lose, but she's decided to stay on for a little while longer. We were going to have to advertise that position in LinkedIn, I guess, but now we have a little bit of reprieve. And she looks at the articles probably 3 times to make sure APA is okay. If it is something that is pretty off or doesn't even look like APA, we'll generally send it back to the author and say, please go look up APA and try to get this as close as possible to APA, and then we'll tweak the minor things. So then we have a full team review, we have a board review, and then we have a second full team review that before this is published. And we're always still picking things up when it moves over into the layout process. Okay, Candace. Next.
And I do want to say, I added this to the chat, but this is an excellent publication for early career folks, I think, especially because of the approach that we take. It's very much a mentoring kind of approach. So when you are paired with an editor, that editor is saying, I'm really questioning, I really wonder about this. I think it would be great if you could flesh this more out, or, this is, down to the minute, this is an awkward sentence. Could you rephrase this? So really, the editors, the review editors are very helpful, especially, and Kelly had asked about students, and that'd be great to have students to write. And I've actually submitted something with a student, and it was a great experience for that student who's gone on to actually do quite a bit of writing. Yeah, it's a great place because we do give so much support. Mm-hmm. And so because I'm sharing screen, I'm having a hard time putting things in chat because I didn't have it on the link, but if maybe somebody could put the link to the ABLE website the ePortfolio review. We are on the ABLE website as a resource. And like Tracy was saying, all of the past issues are there. And there is always a call for papers that are listed there. Again, the deadline for this upcoming one is August 1st. This is not the current one. Another slide has a more current link there. And so just submissions to APR, we ask that people give a very, very brief abstract of what they would like to submit. It is not something written, big written thing. You don't have to have it all already written like you do for IJEP. It really is a developmental process. So you just tell us what you'd like to talk about. And then if we decide that seems like a thing that we would like to publish, we'll get you attached to a review editor who will help you move through that process. Since 2016, we've had 10 editions, and we usually have an average to 7 to 9 submissions each issue. Was it last issue or the one before? We had like a crazy 20 something submissions, and we actually tried to do 14. I think we had 14 articles in that edition. So well, if people want to write, I guess they're in the pandemic, they're ready to write. So it was an interesting, and we really don't usually reject. We've only had 6 clear rejections. And that's again, because of the approach that we take, that we are helping people, figure out how to work within our publication and get them published.
And I'd just like to add something to this, if that's okay, Candace.
Yeah, of course.
We do try to limit an author publishing, 2 in a row, and then not have a third one, skip a third one, because we don't want everybody just to use this as one-stop shop. There are other journals, like Tracy presented IJEP. So we want to encourage you to move to another journal and then come back to us. And also with our team, our own team, we follow the same rules. We do not allow ourselves to publish more than 2 in a row, because we don't want nepotism or anything like that. And generally the ones that are rejected end up publishing in the next edition. Or sometimes we've had some acceptances, and authors are pretty much halfway through, or life gets in the way, pandemic gets in the way, and they just ask us if they can pause it to the next edition. So we do really try to work with you to make sure you get published one way or another and improve. Thank you, Candace. So this is our just a little bit about our publication workflow. I mean, we've talked about this a lot already, so I won't go into too much details, but, submitting your proposal. I think as of yesterday, we had, 1, possibly 2 proposals that are directly related to the conference already coming in. So that's fabulous. Our larger issues generally out of the year is the journal that is right after the conference. And then everybody gets their proposals in, which is great. And then the second publication of the year is usually a little bit more of our thinner, which is fine, because some people are just not ready to publish, or they're still working through it. So this schedule that you see, if you can see it, it is a little bit tiny, but it doesn't show the August 1st, because we had it set at August 18th, and then we decided, well, that doesn't make any sense. We need to have that for a little bit after the conference ends. So we move things, which is great. We usually end up extending it a little bit as well. And we've also had a couple of opportunities where an author will say, is it too late to submit? It's not. It's probably never too late until we get to a certain point in the publication cycle workflow. One of the other things I wanted just to backtrack for just a minute too, we also are looking for interviews all the time. So if that's something you're interested in, writing up an interview related to the conference theme or future themes, that's great as well. So during the authoring phase, the authors are working on their article, they're working with their manuscript, they're receiving some external help from their reviewer, and then we move into the production phase, and we're moving into editing, APA editing, starting to take a look at any images that are coming in. Thank goodness for Susan. She's also excellent at redesigning some of our images, just like our last design and layout member. So that's great. So hopefully some of you already have your thinking caps on and figuring out what you're going to submit and working through the schedule. And the schedule can be made available to you once you submit your proposal. Thank you. Sorry, Candace. I know sometimes you're like
keywords all of a sudden.
No. I think you're just telling me to wrap it up.
Oh, I'm not.
I'm done. You can go to the next one.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's fine.
No, I went
Not
through
that one. The one after. Your keyboard's giving you a hard time.
it. It is.
Yes.
So we do want to invite you to think about joining our team. We do meet. I actually love this team. It's like one of the most consistent things on my schedule. We used to meet once a week, but now we've decided that we can go every other week. So we meet every other week, and we sort of keep ourselves on track with the production schedule. And we help each other. Cindy, as one of our executive editors, is a taskmaster, make sure we get everything done, and pushes us to get things done. We are, we both talked about the review process, and we are very, very interested. If you might be interested in being a review editor, which means working with people that do submit to help authors get their article ready for publication. So if you might be interested in that, or if you're an eagle eye and might be interested in being a copy editor, we could certainly use that help also.
If I could add to that, we're always looking for new members. We are looking for people that want to join and really be committed to work with us and become part of our family. And then, of course, we understand over time, lives change, things change, people move, they get busy. We totally understand that, but we're always looking for more help to become part of our team. I can't reiterate enough, Candace, what she said, that we do work together. If somebody has to miss a meeting, somebody else picks up the slack. If somebody's not in a meeting, they'll text the other person and say, where are you? What's happening? Even if we're driving down the road, we'll still join the meeting. So we know that this is, even though this is magazine style, you can see how beautiful it is. You can look at our back issues. We are very serious about this. This is people's careers. And I'd like to take this opportunity before we move on to thank yous, just to say that if you haven't, if you haven't fully gotten engaged in everything that's happening with ABLE, just please do so. It's career changing. There's so many opportunities, and, we're coming out of the pandemic. There's going to be more opportunities coming up, and it can help you with your service, learning, and joining our team or any of the other volunteer aspects of ABLE. It can help you with publication. It can help you grow in development, becoming a review editor, writing, scholarship, everything. So the big three that you need for promotion if you're on the faculty side, especially, or if you're in a position that you need to be doing things for, yearly assessments. Thank you, Candace. So we just have some feedback and some questions that we kind of want to just throw out there to you to see if you're interested, and you can write in the chat. We can also, when we end the slides in a few minutes, you can also just, verbally ask us, what's the likelihood of you contributing? Do you have any suggestions for future content or themes? We're always looking for future suggestions for not this next edition, but the one after that. Do you have any questions? And, do you have any questions about getting involved with us as a team? So if you could keep those questions in mind, we can take questions in chat, and there's our emails, or you can raise a hand or just speak up. And of course, you may have questions for Tracy as well for IJEP. Of course, it depends on where you're from, whether you call it IJEP or IJEP, right?
Morning.
I always called it IJEP, but Eddie calls it IJEP, so I'm trying to retrain myself.
Interesting.
Thank you all so much for this amazing presentation. One question I had, sometimes you're starting an e-portfolio project and you're starting to think about publishers, and you can't quite figure out what makes your piece fit one publication over another. So for folks outside who have, that research project on their desk right now, and they're debating, AEPR or IJEP, can you help them think about what factors of their project might make it a better fit for one venue or another?
Tracy, would you like to start with
Sure. I mean, to be honest, it depends. So I think sometimes there are research projects that are, or implementation projects that are really relevant and timely that might make them worth publication in one or another, or even both. Often in IJEEP, we are, if it's an empirical article, especially, we're looking for really good empirical evidence to support the claims. But as you saw, IJEEP also accepts distinctive or instructional articles. So I think there's a lot of space. I would say for IJEEP, given that it's a double-blind reviewer, the more that you can cover your bases, as I mentioned, and make sure that your work is really grounded effectively in the literature, that's going to give you an opportunity to get your leg up. And if you're not there yet, I don't know if Cindy and Candace would agree with this, but I think, I always think of, for like my emerging thoughts, like I'm already thinking of AEPR for my piece on design justice. I don't know that I'm ready to contribute like an empirical article on that, but I do want to kind of do a literature survey. So I think it would be a good fit for AEPR. But I think either, in my mind, are could be good depending on where you're at. And I would say Eddie and Jessica at IJEEP are really happy to have conversations with authors. And I know Cindy and Candace are as well, but I'll let them speak to AEPR.
Candace, do you want to chime in?
You can if you want to. I can.
I agree with everything Tracy just said. And I also, my thought process too is, depending on how much energy levels you have going on at the time, maybe you want to consider AEPR first, just because it's a little bit more, less daunting possibly. Or I don't mean it in, trying to get published with IJEEP. I just mean maybe mentally you're thinking it might be a little bit more relaxed, which I would have to agree it is. And if you're new to publishing, I think starting in AEPR is good. I think that moving over to IJEEP, you definitely want to start looking at those articles. You want to start seeing the patterns of what's being published and the details that go along with that. So hopefully if I've said anything, off, please correct me. But Candace, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, I would say, many of our articles in AEPR are case studies, about your experience, because they really are kind of practitioner focused. So if you are, working on a new ePortfolio project and you want to share the things that you've learned, not that wouldn't be appropriate for, again, it depends. But I think for me, I enjoy AEPR a lot because it tells a story about what people are experiencing in their ePortfolio projects. So we really invite those kind of stories, and also thought pieces, that are at the beginning stages of your thinking. So I look forward to your submission, Tracy, about design justice. Because I do think we have ideas about connections that we're making that maybe aren't as fully formed, and writing that first piece can help you get to the place where it becomes more sophisticated.
And we have, sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
No, I was just going to say, I totally agree with that. And even as someone who had published a fair amount before my first time in AEPR, I so appreciated the editorial feedback, which was definitely more extensive than I'm used to with a journal. Sort of, in more traditional journals, you often get like, reject, or you get really wildly differing, feedback from two reviewers that's sometimes difficult to reconcile. It can be a much, I think the nice thing too is, IJEEP is pretty quick in its turnover, but I think AEPR, it's going to get out at a certain amount of time, and depending on how many reviews you have to go through for IJEEP, it could take a little longer. The only other thing I would add is if you're a new career, early career researcher, it's also worthwhile to think about what counts at your institution for promotion and tenure. Oftentimes, depending on where you're at, institutions prefer a double-blind review process. So as Candace already said, I would say AEPR is I would start there if you've never published before. I think it's a great opportunity to get your dip your toe in and get some really good feedback. And then you'll kind of have learned what you'll need to do to get through that IG process, because both were recognized in my context, but that's not true for everyone. And so I would just double check to see where you need to put your energy and your focus, because that could be important.
Right, I agree with Tracy. At my school, both were accepted for promotion from associate to full professor. So I was lucky at my school. But it's just, I think that if you're new, or if you're trying to go from assistant to associate, or if it's just something required in your annual review because you're in the like an IT or LIT area, learning and technology area, I think both are very valuable. And we're also, if you are rejected from IJEP, we are happy to take a look at it. So that's something that it may be that you could publish with us, and then. And like I published an article in AEPR last year, and I could really I'm going to present on some of it in Ignite session at 6 p.m. my time this evening. But I could really continue to expand what I'm working on and think about going into an IJEP publication if I could just muster up a little bit of energy for myself. I'm getting there. Yes.
I guess I also want to mention for folks that as ePortfolio use has grown, that other journals are really interested in ePortfolio articles that are related to specific fields. Tracy gave the example of nursing. Certainly nursing is a field that uses ePortfolios quite a bit. Education is also one that uses ePortfolios quite a bit, and your particular field may be one where you might actually want to publish in your field about ePortfolios. So I just want people to recognize that writing and AEPR and IJEP are not the only places that you might publish. And you might want to say about the publication that's coming up, Amy, in your area.
Yes, so Helen Chen, Chris Baskier from Auburn University, and myself are putting together a special issue of Across the Disciplines on ePortfolio practice. And so that'll be out next fall. We have already done our review period. So we have a good set of collectors. We're excited to contribute to the conversation.
Right. I actually presented at a couple of teaching and learning conferences, related to ePortfolios. So you can really branch out. It's very, very large. It's awesome.
And you might even think about, as a scholarly contribution, contributing ePortfolio thinking and research into your disciplinary organization. I know I'm giving a keynote at the South Atlantic Modern Language Association conference in November, and they're really interested as practitioners and researchers in modern languages to really think about ePortfolio as a pedagogy that might assist in writing instruction and beyond. So they're kind of weaving some ePortfolio sessions into their conference, and so you might be able to weave some. I'm a historian by training, and I know that I brought ePortfolios to the Canadian Historical Association. So that's a contribution that you might want to make as well, and that would be a great thing to write up in AEPR or IG.
Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to say this is really helpful. I really appreciate it. And don't take the silence as lack of interest. I'm really just trying to think about and Tracy knows we're starting a new project and trying to figure out how we could intersect with the things that you're doing to, write something up and make a contribution. So the wheels are turning.
Oh, great.
Not there yet.
I'm glad to hear that, Jennifer. Yeah. And I actually think, for me, writing has always been about me learning more. Right. And so I encourage people that are at the beginning stages of projects to think about writing, because it actually helps clarify your thinking, and it helps other people understand what that process is like as they begin their own practice.
Yeah, and because I'm familiar with the work that Jennifer and her colleagues are doing at the University of Michigan Flint, one of the things is when we're working on our ePortfolio initiatives, they're often multi-pronged or usually multi-pronged, and so there's actually lots of opportunity for publication, and sometimes it can be a challenge to think about like what piece should I start with, and like how would I break this up? And again, having a colleague give you some feedback, one of us, we're always happy to do that, to kind of brainstorm with you where a sweet spot might be that you could actually hone in and get a publication out. Most ePortfolio initiatives end up, being kind of multi-publication kind of projects. So, so don't think, you're going to be limited to one, but you might want to look at, your initiative and how it's contributing to your disciplinary field, how it's contributed to perhaps faculty development or program or curricular change, how the data you've collected backs to you about student engagement. Like there are so many layers usually to these projects that it's usually helpful to think about and brainstorm what some ideas for publications might be, and that might also help you to target the appropriate journals.
Well, again, I want to invite you to think about joining us on the team of AEPR, and I'm sure that IJEP would love for you to be reviewers also. So think about, how you could contribute other ways than publication.